Let's talk about expression nodes in Ventuz today. These nodes let you basically write small logical functions using the C# language to perform calculations, process inputs, or make any decisions, right? They are basically like little math wizards that help us create dynamic and interactive designs. Today we will focus on 4 types: the int expression, the double expression, the Boolean expression, and the float expression. Let's break them down into simple terms. You can find the expression nodes under the toolbox in the logic category, and then here under expressions you can find all of that expression. So if you right click, then you can see there's a bunch of different expressions. Today we will basically focus on the integers and the floats and the booleans because they are very similar to each other. So let's start with the integer expression. Simply drag and drop that whole nodes bundle, that expression bundle into your content editor, and then you can choose from here which expression you want to use. We will start with the int expression. And if we check out here our properties, then you can see we have a field where we can write down our expression and we have arguments, okay? We also can change or add arguments with this little button here, with that parameter. You can see here we can add inputs or add outputs. And if we select the argument and press delete on the keyboard, then we also are able to delete them. By default, the expression field just simply says the output should be A, right? So if we check out here the output, and if I change here my argument A, then you can see the output will always be that A argument, okay? So if we say now I want to make a simple addition, for example, right? So we say here A plus B, and then we give here our, let's make that whatever 5, and let's make that also 5, and then you can say this expression is working like it should. In the expression field, you can use any mathematical operations basically, right? So if I write here A minus B, then you can see our result is 0, which is exactly correct. If we say 5 minus 4, then our result is as well correct. You also can use these expression nodes to write down if-else statements in the expression down here. Let me show you how that works. So let's say you want that the result is 1 when A is equal to B, okay? So to do that, let me write down here A is equal to B, then it's the question mark, you do 1, else is the colon, you do 0. Okay, so this is the simplified C# form, basically what you can use for if-else statement here in this expression. Okay, so if we check that, so A is equal to B, if A is equal to B, then do the left side of that column, else do the right side of that column. Okay, so now it's false, that's why we have 0, right? So if we change that 0 to, let's say, 100, then we can see the output is exactly correct. Let's bring that back to 0. And let's make them equal. So A is 5 and B is 5 and our result is 1. Let's talk about the Boolean expression next. So simply drag and drop the Boolean expression here. And as you can see, we have here similar properties like in our previous expression nodes. And here we only have by default 1 argument now. So let's add 1 more with that parameters button. And I simply add 1 more Boolean. And let's also write down a simple if-else statement. I want to check if A is true and B is true, then I want that my result is true as well. So let's write that down. If A is equal to true and B is equal to true, then I want my output to be true, else I want my output to be false. So let's check that out. So both are not true, so our output is false as well. So if A is true and B is true, then our result is true. So the next and the last expression we want to talk about is the dynamic expression. So let's bring them in. The dynamic expression you can find here. And by default, you can see there are no parameters. We only have the expression property. And the dynamic expression is basically if you want to set up your own expressions, right, based on different inputs. For example, let's say I want to have 1 integer, I want to have 1 Boolean, and I want to have 1, let's say, float, right? So let's do that quickly. Let's give them some different names. I have here my int. I have here my int float. So I just give them some words basically are to know to distinguish it from other values. Yeah, so in for input, and this here is our in Boolean. Okay. Now let's say I want to make a simple multiplication from our float and our integer if this one is true, if our bool is true. Okay, so let's write it down. If a is true, then we do our expression, right? We do our multiplication, and that's in float multiplied by our in integer. Else, so if a is not true, I simply want to have a number which is then, let's say, number is -1, right? And as you can see, we also don't have the output here now, so also let's give it the output, and that depends now on you, yeah, what inputs you have, right, or what the result basically would be. I mean, it's very obvious here. If we do a multiplication between an integer and a float, of course, then we probably should use a float as output as well, okay? So let's add a float as output down here, and as you can see, if we activate our guy here, nothing will happen because we also have an error. So let's check that error now. So this error means the name A does not exist in the current context, okay? So that's my fault. So as you see, I type here in the expression A, but we renamed that to in bool, right? So of course, that was my mistake. So in bool, if this in bool is true, then do the calculation, okay? So it's false, that's why we get our -1, which we defined here on the false side of that statement, right? And if we activate that, then we will have also 0, because 5.7 multiplied by 0 is 0. So let's bring that to 25. And as you can see, this is working as well.